All right, so today we're diving into something that maybe doesn't sound all that exciting at first, budgeting. But stick with me on this one. What if I told you it's not really about restricting yourself? It's more like you know, unlocking achievements in real life, like leveling up your finances to reach your goals. That's what we're going to unpack today. This deep dive is based on the story of Mia. She's a recent grad, dealing with those familiar post-college things, student loans, big dreams for the future, and that feeling of where do I even begin when it comes to money?
Yeah, totally. I think most of us have been there at some point.
Right. But Mia's story gets really interesting when she meets this advisor, Mr. Grant Money. Now, he's not your typical financial expert.
He seems like a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, he has this way of making budgeting seem approachable and maybe even kind of fun.
Yeah. Fun is definitely not the first word that comes to mind with budgeting, usually.
Exactly. So let's tap into Mr. Grant Money's wisdom, see what we can learn. One of the first things that stood out to me was his philosophy. He's not about deprivation. He's all about aligning your spending with what really matters to you. Okay, that sounds great in theory, but how do we actually put that into practice?
Well, it's interesting how Mr. Great Money starts right away with goal setting. Like, he doesn't just ask Mia, what are your goals?
Mm.
He asks her about the experiences she wants to have in the next year, the next 5 years. So in Mia's case, she wants to travel. You have to eventually buy a house. And, of course, tackle those student loans. But by framing it around experiences, it suddenly feels less like a chore and more like a roadmap to this exciting life she wants to build.
I love that. So it's not just about like abstract financial goals, it's about connecting those goals to the life you want to live. So he's got her thinking about these specific experiences. Then what?
Then he helps her break down those big dreams into smaller steps, achievable steps. So, for example, Mia dreams of going to Japan. Mr. Grant Money has her research how much that trip would actually cost. Break it down into monthly savings goals. He even suggests maybe finding ways to earn extra income, like freelancing or something.
Ah, I see. So it's about turning this seemingly impossible dream into a plan, something you can actually work towards.
Exactly.
It's like leveling up in a video game. You
Totally.
got to complete those smaller quests before you can reach the final boss, or if, in this case, that dream vacation. Now I'm guessing tracking income and expenses comes into play here too.
Oh, absolutely. But even here, Mr. Grant Money has a different approach. He doesn't just tell Mia to record every single penny she spends.
Mhm.
He encourages her to categorize her spending.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. He has her categorize her spending based on her values.
Ooh, okay.
So instead of just groceries, it becomes fueling my healthy lifestyle. Instead of entertainment, it's creating memories with friends.
Whoa, hold on. So you're telling me he has her rename her budget categories to reflect what's important to her?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
kind of brilliant. It is, because then when you see your spending through that lens, you start to notice patterns. Maybe you're spending way more on convenience than you realized. And maybe that money could be used for something that's more aligned with your values, like investing in your future or something.
Yeah. I can already see how this would make you much more aware of where your money is going and why you're spending it. But let's be real for a sec. Budgeting isn't just about the essentials.
Right.
We all want to enjoy life, have some fun. So where does that fit into all of this?
Well, Mr. Grant Money is all about enjoying the present moment, but he really emphasizes intentional spending. He asks Mia, what are those small, everyday things that truly make you happy?
Oh,
And for
God.
Mia, it's things like trying new coffee shops, going to concerts with friends, simple things.
So it's about pinpointing the things that truly add value to her life, not just spending without thinking. Exactly. And then he helps her figure out how to include those things in her budget. So maybe instead of going out to lunch every single day, she packs her lunch a few times a week
Mm-hmm.
and uses the money she saves to go to a concert on the weekend. It's all about making conscious choices, not feeling like you're restricted all the time.
I like that. It's about making choices that actually make you happy. It really is about finding that balance, isn't it? Between enjoying life now and setting yourself up for the future. Now, one thing I always struggle with is that whole wants versus needs thing. It feels like you can justify almost anything as a need if you try hard enough.
Oh, tell me about it.
So how does Mr. Grant Money help Mia with that?
He has this really neat exercise. He calls it the future self check-in.
Okay.
He has Mia imagine herself 5 years in the future, looking back at a purchase she's about to make. And he has her ask herself, would future Mia be happy about this? Did this purchase actually help me reach my goals? Or is it something I'm going to regret later?
Wow. That's a really interesting way to think about it. It's like stepping outside of the moment and getting some perspective.
Exactly.
I can definitely see that helping to curb those impulse purchases. Speaking of the future, let's talk about investing.
Okay.
This is something that I know a lot of people find intimidating, Mia included. But Mr. Grant Money seems to have a knack for breaking things down, making it all seem a lot less scary.
Yeah, he does.
So where does he even suggest starting with investing?
Well, he begins by asking Mia what she's curious about.
Interesting.
It turns out that Mia is really fascinated by sustainable energy companies.
Okay.
So he encourages her to start there.
Yeah.
Do some research on those companies, learn about what they do, see if their values align with hers.
So it's not just about picking random stocks, it's about finding investments that you connect with on a personal level.
Yeah, exactly.
It becomes more than just numbers on a screen. It's about supporting something you believe in. And then from there, I guess he gets into the nuts and bolts of investing.
Yeah, he introduces her to things like index funds, ETFs, and of course, the magic of compound interest.
Ah, yes. Compound interest, the concept everyone talks about. But I'll be honest, I still don't fully understand how it works.
Well, Mr. Grant Money uses this great analogy. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's small,
Okay.
but as it rolls, it picks up more and more snow, getting bigger and bigger. That's compound interest. Your initial investment is like that small snowball.
I see.
And over time, the interest you earn starts earning interest itself. And that's how you get this exponential growth.
Okay, I think I'm actually getting it now.
Good.
It's like a chain reaction of growth.
Exactly.
But before we can really get into investing, there's often this big obstacle to overcome,
Debt.
debt, like those student loans that Mia's dealing with. So what kind of advice does Mr. Grant Money have for tackling that?
Well, first, he tries to reframe the way Mia thinks about debt. Instead of seeing it as this heavy burden, he encourages her to see it as an opportunity to build good financial habits.
Okay.
He calls it training for financial fitness.
Training for financial fitness. So how does this training actually work?
He has Mia make a list of all of her debts, the interest rates, minimum payments. And then he helps her explore different repayment strategies, like the snowball method, the avalanche method, to figure out what works best for her personality and her financial goals.
So it's not about finding a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It's about finding what keeps you motivated and on track. I remember the outline mentioned things like refinancing and income-driven repayment plans.
Yeah,
Does Mr. Grant Money talk about those at all?
he does. He explains how refinancing can sometimes lower your interest rate,
Okay.
which obviously saves you money in the long run. But he makes sure to point out that it's really important to compare different offers and consider the impact it could have on your credit score.
So it's not always the best option.
Right.
It depends on your individual situation. What about income-driven repayment plans?
He explains that those plans can lower your monthly payments
Right.
based on your income, which can be a huge help.
Yeah.
But he also cautions that they could extend your repayment period. So it's really important to understand the long-term implications before you make a decision.
It seems like Mr. Grant Money's approach is all about giving people the information they need
Yeah.
so they can make informed choices, not just handing them a generic solution.
Exactly.
He seems to be a big believer in empowering people to take control of their finances, which I really appreciate.
Me too.
It's so refreshing to hear a financial expert talk about education and individual empowerment like that. Yeah, it really is a different approach, isn't it?
It is.
And it all comes back to that idea that knowledge is power, right? The more you understand about your finances, the more confident you'll feel making decisions. You know, it's funny, at the beginning of this deep dive, I talked about budgeting being like a superpower. And I think what Mr. Grant Money shows, Mia, is that the real superpower isn't about specific strategies or anything. It's all about mindset.
Totally. It's about moving away from this feeling of scarcity and embracing this feeling of abundance. Yeah. But not like in the sense of having unlimited money or something. More like knowing that you have the power to make choices. Choices that align with what you truly value and what you want to achieve.
I love that. So it's not about denying yourself. It's about making choices that help you create the life you want. There was this one part that really stuck with me. When Mr. Grant Money encouraged Mia to think about money as energy.
Oh, yeah. What did you think about that?
It's a really interesting concept. He
Yeah.
talks about how we can direct that energy
I've
towards
heard.
things that make us happy, things that help us grow.
Right.
And he asks Mia this really thought-provoking question. He says, where is your money flowing right now? Is it energizing you or is it draining you?
That's a good one.
I know, right? It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
It does.
And it's clear that Mr. Grant Money's approach is very personalized, you know? He's not just giving me a cookie-cutter budget plan. He's helping her create something that works for her, something that fits her life and her goals.
Yeah. And he also makes sure to emphasize that budgeting isn't a one-time thing.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
It's like a journey.
Exactly.
You got to keep checking in with yourself.
Yeah.
Making adjustments as needed, celebrating your wins along the way.
Absolutely.
It's all about progress.
Not perfection.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Mr. Grant Money's approach to budgeting, what would you say is the most important takeaway?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that budgeting isn't about restriction. It's about empowerment.
Empowerment.
It's about using your finances as a tool to create the life you want.
That's a great way to put it.
And it all starts with getting clear on your goals, understanding your values, and making conscious choices that align with those things.
Well said. It's like we've leveled up our understanding of personal finance. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. We hope you found some valuable insights that you can apply to your own lives. And remember, as Mr. Grant Money says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So start taking those small steps towards your financial goals and watch them grow into something amazing.